Jazzcast Pros.
There are 3 people that you need to think about every day and with all the decisions that you make. You know all 3 of them, you speak to them on a daily basis, but sometimes you speak to them in the subconscious. Do you know who they are? When I and my clients have been most successful, it's when we're super intentional with our conversations with each of these 3 people, again, on a daily basis. If you want to know who they are and the conversations we're having, keep on listening. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the cautiously ambitious woman, remove mental barriers and take action now so that you can achieve your high vibe desires. I'm your host, Rashawn Hargrave, and I have taken my background of education and my decade of working for a startup and turn it into high vibe masterminds. Every week, I share insights from myself and my guests to help you navigate the messy middle. So if you listened to one of my episodes a couple weeks ago about what I want to do in 2024, you know that my word for the year is bloom. What does that mean? Because I was trying to find a word that encompassed both shining and grounding. And why bloom encapsulates that perfectly is because it's me both sinking into my roots and soaking up the energy and nutrients from being grounded, like my meditating and my relaxed time and my time where I'm doing nothing, and also really shining and opening up my petals to who I am most authentically and shining brightest in who I'm meant to be in this world and my most authentic, funnest self. So that's why my word for the year is bloom. And I've been doing some reflecting into when have I been that person previously? And again, a couple episodes ago, I talked about my house buying journey and how I had this really intense North Star goal. And I really used that as a filter for all my decision making. And what I realized is that I was talking to these 3 people on a daily basis. And those 3 people are my past self, my future self, and my current self, my present self. And the conversations I was having with each of those people, because they are all within me, really helped me take a step back in my decision-making process. So let's get into that a little bit, the conversations that I was having then, and then what I'm doing now, what I'm doing really well and what I'm not doing well in having those conversations. I love talking about navigating the messy middle. I am going to talk about my messy middle with these today a little bit after we get into the conversations with those 3 people. I'm going to talk about areas in which I'm doing really well talking to those 3 people and areas in which I'm really struggling to talk to those 3 people at this moment. I want to share those with you because that's important. We're not all or nothing creatures. We're not perfect. And if you feel like you're excelling really well in one area, not in the other, that's normal. That's part of the process. So, an example of me speaking to my past self when I was buying the house. I had previously made really poor choices with money. I had a very detached relationship with money, and I tended to ignore it because I really struggled with how to manage it, how to take care of it. And that resulted in poor credit, a lack of savings. And so instead of being super harsh on myself and saying, what is wrong with you? Why would you do that? I gave myself a lot of grace. And I said, okay, we did that. That was who we were. And now we're different people. And now we're going to make different choices because you can't change anything. And so giving yourself grace is an important part of that process when looking upon past self. But just like every week, in this community on my high vibe calls, we celebrate the good things that we did, the wins. So there's a lot of things that we did well, and recognizing those is really important too. When I look back on my entrepreneur journey, there's so many moments that I'm so proud of the decisions that I made, the yeses that I said, the yeses that I followed, the things that felt really good. Oh, this feels like the next right step, and taking those risks. And so being proud of that as well. Yes, there were some missteps and there were some choices that didn't pan out the way that I had hoped, but really balancing like, yes, mistakes were made, lessons were learned, and wins were had. And so, in really blooming into my best self, I have to take a look back and say to past self, why was that choice made? Or what did I learn from that mistake? Or I am so proud that you did that. And really having those conversations with your past self. The second person that you need to have a conversation with is future self. What does future self want to feel, look like, understand, know, have joy in their life? What does that look like, feel like, smell like, sound like? What is the day-to-day actions of that future self? I think a lot of times we look at future self in 5 years, 3 years, even 1 year from now. Future self can also look like tomorrow, you. Future self can be next week, you. Future self can be tonight after bedtime when I just want to crawl in bed and not do the dishes. So I think sometimes we look at future self as this really big picture. And I think those are obviously very important. I have 3-year goals for myself. I have 1-year goals for myself. But it's another example of, I just took another screenshot of it and I really want to put it on Instagram. But it's all about the small steps, and it's about the really small things that ultimately make such a big difference. What will future tomorrow thank you for? And the day after, and even like 6 hours, even 1 hour from now. Like if you're like, oh, I know I need to do that exercise, but I really don't. What will 1 hour from you now thank you for? Not doing it or doing it? And so it's about these small incremental steps that you can take to then build and have compounding effect over time. So for me, like big picture self is looking for freedom. It's looking for being the relaxed woman. It's looking for being grounded. It's looking for work that is super fulfilling, that feels easy and in flow. And so, what are things that I can do today that future self is going to look back and say, thank you for doing that. Thank you for implementing that. Thank you for putting that process in place. Thank you for doing the thing that you didn't necessarily want to do in the moment and did anyways. The thing that was simple but not easy. I was having a conversation yesterday with someone about, shout out to you, Amanda, the things that are simple but not easy. Speaking to all three people is really important because healing that inner part of us, that past version of ourselves, is really important to like open up and be our most authentic. And I think the people that are in friction the most are our future self and our present self. So kind of transitioning to person 3, which is present self. What do I currently need? How am I currently feeling? And really checking in with self throughout the day. There are so many times where we can get lost in the hustle, lost in the checklist, and lost in the accomplishing, and taking a step back and saying, okay, did I drink my water? And again, that's another like future self, but current self need. And being really in tune with your inner self to say, what do you need in this moment? What can I give to you that's going to help you like right now? How can I really tune in instead of like outwardly, what are all the things that I should be doing? What can I do for self? And why I say that present self and future self tend to be the ones that are most at friction is because current self really wants some salty chips. Current self really wants like a good onion dip with some salty chips. Like I'm a salty person. Like sweets are take them or leave them, but salty is like where I fall down. Current self really wants that. Future self's going to be frustrated because I filled up on junk food versus fueling my body. And so actually in some of the work that like Joan does, she was on a couple episodes ago and we talked about filling up your plate. So have some chips and have a slice of cheese because that has some more protein in it, and have a couple carrots because that's going to have some fiber and some color. So addition versus omission in that thinking. So it's satisfying current self of like, I really want something salty, and future self of like, I'm not going to either eat 4 chips and then be hungry in 30 minutes and still be frustrated that I'm hungry. It's going to be filled and fueled for my body. Present self really doesn't want a cold call because you're opening yourself up to rejection. But future self, when I close my laptop at 3 o'clock, is going to be like, you did the damn thing. You sent those emails out. You messaged those people on LinkedIn. You shot your shot to a big person to be on your podcast. Whatever that thing is for you, putting yourself out there, you did it. And so I was listening to Jen Sincero yesterday, and she reminded me of it's not when your faith is bigger than your fear. It's like when your desires for something bigger are bigger than your fear. And that's keeping future self in check or in the background when you are talking to present self. I think they have to be having the conversation together a lot, because there is a time and place for pushing through the things that we don't want to do. Like future self would be really grateful if I got everything checked off my list. Am I ever actually going to get everything checked off my list? So will future self ever really be happy that I put my nose to the grindstone and just kept going even though I needed to like go for a walk? Probably not. So keeping in check present self, future self, and taking past self, giving grace, giving applause, and being curious of like, why did I make those decisions in the past? And how can I set myself up for success as presently, which my future self will thank me for? One of the things that I did want to talk about, and I feel like this has been a game changer for me, and it might feel like, oh my God, is this an ad? And like, no, if you have like been in my like in real life over the past like 2 weeks, I have talked about this planner. It is this planner from Erin on Demand, who is a YouTuber, and she has an amazing channel all about entrepreneurship and building a business and being a woman in business and being a solopreneur. So check out her YouTube channel for sure. She has this planner. It's called Top 3, and it really hones in on the power of 3. So each week you focus on what are the 3 things you want to accomplish this week, which is very similar to the conversations that we have on the Monday calls in the High Vibe Mastermind. Because it's like chunk it down to 3 things. You want to move the needle with 3 things this week. In the planner, you do that every week and you do it every day. You also do it every month and every quarter, but really honing in on the small steps that you're doing today and this week, I think are the secret sauce of this planner for me every day. And, the High Vibe Mastermind was really created out of, let's focus on 2 to 3 things you want to do this week. One of the things that really helps me do for present self is, okay, what are my 3 top priorities today? A lot of times I accomplish those in a shorter amount of time than I realize, and it gives me so much grace at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, sometimes it's 2, to close my laptop and be done with the day, because I said these were my priorities and now I'm done. When I'm setting it up, I'm thinking about past self, future self, present self. And when I hit those 3 priorities, there's like, okay, because like I said before, you're never going to get everything checked off ever. Like it's just human life that like we all have a lot going on. You know, if I hit my 3 things and I want to like catch up on The Bachelor while I clean my kitchen, cool. I did the stuff I said I wanted to do today. And like Friday, when I closed my laptop at 3, I felt so accomplished and I felt so like, take a breath because the week felt really accomplished because I had a super defined vision of what I wanted my week to look like. And I did those things. The other nice thing, you know, that's kind of like on Monday morning or, you know, for the week, and then every morning for the day, setting up, thinking about future self was like, okay, what are my priorities? Like, how do I really weed out that to-do list and focus on what my priorities are? And then past self of like, okay, I didn't get the things done that I had wanted to do. Why? And getting really curious about that and leaving the shame behind and forget that. But like just curiosity. Why didn't I get to it yesterday? Was it Saturday when I was sitting next to an 8-year-old in a puke bucket? Was it because I drove, you know, an hour to a customer and then they realized that the person I needed to talk to wasn't in the store? Was it because I stayed up too late the night before and my morning routine was all out of whack? None of those are like bad things. It's data. We're just pulling out the data. So, what are some things that I am doing well at the moment in talking to past, future, current self? And then I'm going to talk about a couple ways in which I am struggling with those 3 things. One thing that I'm kind of currently like in limbo with is my money. I've talked about it before, is like I naturally have a tendency to like let money get out of control by ignoring it. And so last week I set up You Need a Budget and I'm really liking it so far. I had used Mint previously. I believe they went out of business or went bankrupt, but You Need a Budget is very future planning for your money. So as soon as money comes in, you already have a place that you want to put it. And it's just really cool. Like, again, focusing on my priorities. Like, I want to travel this summer with my family. I want to pay off any debt. And so before money comes in, it already has a place and I'm taking care of it. I'm not like frantic about it. I'm not ignoring it. I'm saying, thank you for coming in here and taking care of my life the way that I want it to be taken care of. So I'm going to put you in this safe place. Another small thing that I'm doing, again, it's like small things that future you will thank you for, is I love setting up my coffee the night before. So when I get out of bed in the morning and, you know, I'm doing morning stuff, getting Rowan on the bus, making her lunch, doing all that sort of stuff, my coffee's like brewing for me. Another area in which I am doing well, I think, is as a parent. I really try to hone in on my messaging, on my connection with my daughter. My words matter, and I take them very intentionally. As I'm having a conversation, I really try to focus on what she's saying, what she's hearing, what I'm saying, how we're like understanding each other, and how I want what I'm saying at this moment to potentially affect our future relationship, her future self. I really want to pour into her things that will really help her bloom in the future to her best, funnest, most incredible, confident self. And so I think that's something I'm doing really well. Another one is sales. You know, I have a really good funnel. I've really been pouring into it. I set up my sale goal for the week. And so when I think about, you know, current self doesn't like to send out all the messages. It's not the most enjoyable thing, but future me is so proud, so happy, has so much data. And past me is saying, you know, I didn't have my brain quite wrapped around my process, and that's okay. I do now, and I'm taking action on it, and I meddled with it, and I like thought about it, and so I'm really pouring into that. Where I am struggling, because again, I like to show the messy middle. This is not an all or nothing thing. I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so in tune with past, future, and present self that like, I'm just like you can't, no. I feel like I'm doing well and I feel like I'm struggling. And that may always be the case. There may always be like balls in the air that I'm struggling to maintain. And that's okay. A couple areas in which I am struggling. One is movement. I have not found my groove with moving my body and feeling strong and taking care of my body exercise-wise in a long time. I grew up, I played sports from 4 or 5 years old all the way through college. And after college, I like kind of went in and out and found some things that I loved. But I'm really struggling with holding myself accountable and finding a space that I can show up to on a consistent basis for movement. So that is something that I'm really struggling with. Another way that I'm struggling is being a housekeeper. I tend to let little things stack up and then put them all I'm like, okay, so Saturday morning is going to be my time and I'm just going to spend like 4 hours doing all the things. But then like Monday through Friday, I'm like frustrated because it just is like piling up. And it's like in my brain that needs to be taken care of. I'm trying to get into the don't put it down, put it away mantra. I heard that from Missy. And that's a little nod to like future self. Like future self doesn't want to put this away. Just put it away right now. It's just not something that I am great at. Working on it. In progress. And if you are my friend in real life and you have my phone number, you're going to be like, yes, thank you for acknowledging this. I'm not great at texting back. I like read it and then I like forget to send it back or like texting has just been a struggle recently to where I've had like multiple friends be like, hey, you good? I text you, I haven't heard back from you. Like, everything okay? And I've been really bad at that. So if you are one of my friends who sent one of those, I hear you. I'm working on it. It's just a space where I am having a hard time at the moment, but working on it. And then what helps me speak to these 3 people, I will give you 2 examples. It might seem a little woo-woo, but here we are. We're talking to our past and future self. Like, this is woo. Is journaling and meditation. Journaling really helps you get into the subconscious and dive in, getting curious about past self, getting curious about future self. Those are all things that you can really have great conversations with as you journal. And the other one is meditation. For, what meditation has done for me has created space between when something happens to me and the decisions that I make. It's allowed me to just almost slow a moment down. If you're into sports, sometimes when baseball or softball players are hitting the ball really well, it's like the ball is either coming in slow motion or it looks like a beach ball to them. And meditation has helped me just slow everything down and been like, okay, what do I want my big picture life to look like and how can I act according to that? So I hope that was helpful. Let me know what you think. Do you have conversations with past, future, and current self? Let me know what those look like. If you like this podcast, High Vibe Table Talks, don't forget to subscribe. We will see you next week. And remember that big dreams and small steps will transform your life.